In the diagnostic world you and I reside in, many technicians tend to go about their day troubleshooting systems that they don't really know much about. And it's not their fault. It was the way they were forced to learn. Many of us, through a process of memorization, try to store information in our minds. And you know the information we encounter on a daily basis tends to become overwhelming. With that, memorization simply doesn't work. The name of the game today is being able to do research when we need to and find the information we need fast, not store it in our minds because it simply takes up too much space, placing us under an enormous amount of stress as troubleshooting diagnostic technicians. Instead, the name of the game in this series is not based upon memorization, but gaining a true understanding of how things work at their most basic level. Focusing your efforts on understanding how components function, especially those components that apply to virtually everything we work on, is something that's going to pay dividends for the rest of your career. And with that, we want to begin our discussion today with Hall effect sensors. Want to know more? Stick with me on this episode of The Trainer. Now, similar to variable reluctance sensors, or VR sensors, as we discussed in a previous video, Hall effect switch type sensors are used in a very similar fashion in the automotive industry, typically to detect rotational speed or proximity. They emit pulses, referred to as a frequency that the ECU counts over time to determine a rate of speed. However, they do differ from VR sensors, not only in their construction, but how they perform. If you recall, a VR sensor produces an AC sine wave. And with that, the rotational reluctor that trips up or disturbs the magnetic field, the one responsible for creating the AC voltage, cannot do so appropriately at slower rotational speeds, making the VR sensor dependent upon that rotational speed for accuracy. And in plain English, if that object is not turning fast enough, the VR sensor doesn't function properly and is not reliable. And this is where Hall effect sensors are different. Hall effect sensors do not produce their own voltage. They are supplied a reference voltage and ground for manipulation. And as the rotating ferrous object, trigger wheel if you will, or reluctor, comes in proximity to the sensor, the magnetic field that's being disturbed is manipulated by electronics internal to the sensor. And a Schmidt trigger is used to create hysteresis or the switching, the logic low or logic high you and I tend to see referred to as a square wave. The difference between a VR sensor and that of a Hall effect sensor is a Hall effect sensor is accurate regardless of the speed of rotation of the object it's detecting. Simply rotating the object past the Hall effect sensor in either direction is enough to trigger its functionality and generate the square wave transitional switch from low to high or high to low, making it extremely reliable, especially at slow speeds, for ECUs to count the pulses. Because after all, the ECU can only count the pulses it can see. And all that is nice to know information. But I'd like to bring you the need to know information. And that's how to test Hall effect sensors accurately and efficiently. As mentioned earlier, Hall effect sensors require a supply voltage and supply ground reference to give the sensor a range of operation to function on. It's the signal wire that we are most interested in, and that is the one that reports to the ECU. The frequency pulse is counted by the ECU to determine rotational speed. Like that of a VR sensor, the amplitude of the signal is what's important. The amplitude has to cross a certain threshold, both high and low, to represent digital logic high and low. And it's the ECU that counts the frequency of those pulses, or how often those pulses occur. To acquire a signal from a Hall effect sensor means sampling from the signal circuit. And to do so, we're going to leverage the power of a digital storage oscilloscope. It's best to first reference a wiring diagram to determine which of the three circuits represents what portion of the Hall effect sensor switch: the reference voltage supply, the ground reference supply, and the signal wire. In my experience, I always recommend attempting to acquire signal at the easiest to access location. There is no use digging any further into the system if the sensor is not capable of producing a signal output. Keeping in mind the limitations of the test we're performing, just because a sensor can produce a signal does not necessarily mean that that signal reached the ECU that's intended to process it. If a sensor is not producing a signal, we don't wish to condemn the sensor. First and foremost, we have to determine if the sensor has everything it needs to function. Just like you or I need food, water, and rest to function, a Hall effect switch sensor requires a reference voltage, a reference ground, and of course a signal circuit to manipulate. Verifying first that the sensor has reference voltage present, reference ground supply present, and a signal voltage present, we then have to determine if the sensor is capable of manipulating that signal. The sensor provides the path to ground for the signal wire leaving the ECU once the Hall circuit's been tripped, making it a pull-down type design. Verifying first that the signal wire circuit has voltage present at the sensor, we then have to determine if the sensor is capable of pulling it to ground, keeping in mind that it requires mechanical manipulation from a trigger wheel or reluctor to allow that to occur. And things like bent teeth and proximity or air gap play a huge factor in the sensor's functionality. And if the sensor signal is functioning properly, we then have to determine, is the signal making it all the way to the ECU? Testing at an ECU, many technicians prefer to backprobe a circuit in an effort to prevent damage to wiring. Keep in mind that introducing a backprobe to the backside of a connector increases terminal tension and may mask a potential problem internal to that connector. My advice after all these years in the field, pierce the wire. That will ensure that you have good connectivity to the circuit, allow you to verify that the sensor signal is present, and you can always repair that wire when you've done testing. If the sensor signal is present, we then have to verify terminal integrity to ensure that the signal is making its way to the ECU. So as you can see, the story doesn't change no matter how much time passes by. It always makes sense to invest time learning how things function when they're used in common configurations, because you're going to be using them all the time. Having a solid understanding of how a Hall effect switch sensor functions gives you anticipation on what to expect as far as test results go when performing testing on live circuits. Understanding the limitations of your tests means ensuring that the sensor signal makes it to the ECU where it needs to be for that ECU to process that signal to determine rotational speed or angle space. It's this same understanding and anticipation that drives your testing as a successful diagnostician. And leveraging the tools that tell the entire story, in this case the digital storage oscilloscope, allows us to see the sensor in action. And more importantly, when something isn't as it should be, allows us to determine what's missing. I'm Bradon Steckler, technical editor of Motor Age magazine. I thank you for joining me on this episode of The Trainer.